Welcome to another flip video lesson with Mr. Volkman. I think I need to try that again. Welcome to another flip video lesson with Mr. Volkman. No, still not right. I'm going to try it a third time. Here we go. One more time. Well, good morning, good afternoon. I missed one, didn't I? Fourth time's a charm. Well, I hope you enjoyed a new introduction to the flipped video lessons. There's been so many times where I've started a lesson and I've just plumb messed up, whether I didn't look at my script right or I stumbled over my words. And there's so many times where I think, it'd be great if my students could see that, hey, Mr. Volkman, this professional tie-wearing teacher, he makes mistakes too. So hopefully you enjoyed some goofy errors that I did. This is an actual flip video lesson for lesson 14.4. Today we're actually going to start talking about Andrew Jackson and how he actually governed our country by looking at some of the decisions he first made in his first few months and year or so of being president of our country. Before we actually get into some actual information, I'm going to show you a political cartoon that we'll be discussing a little bit more in class. Here are some pre-questions that I want you to think about when you look at the following comic. First off, I want you to think about what do you actually see. I encourage you to write these observations down either on your outline or in your notebook. Next, I want you to think about who do you think the animal represents in the comic? And finally, why do you think Jackson is pictured the way he is? I'd like you to pause the video, take a look at this picture closely, and think about the three questions I asked you. Again, we'll be discussing this picture more in depth in class in the coming couple of days. Let's begin by talking about Jackson's kitchen cabinet. No, we're not going to talk about the type of food he ate or what his cooks bought for him to make for him for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a midnight snack. No, the kitchen cabinet was something much different. It was used from 1829 to 1831. The kitchen cabinet was, in fact, a group of trusted friends and advisors that Jackson had and used. You see, he used this group of friends and advisors instead of going to his actual political cabinet. Remember when we did our civics unit and we talked about the executive branch? You have the president who handpicks different people who are experts in different parts of running a government, whether it's a secretary of war, secretary of state, a secretary of transportation, or secretary of education. Those are men or women nowadays who are experts on this. Andrew Jackson didn't use his cabinet members very much. He used his group of friends, close friends and advisors instead to help him run the country. Or at the very least, to bounce ideas off these men. Now, the reason he did not use his actual cabinet is because the cabinet he had was ineffective. It just didn't work well. And it didn't work very well because of a scandal that occurred amongst a number of the people in his cabinet. You see, there was too much infighting going on, and there was infighting that was started through a scandal involving the Secretary of War and his wife. Something that occurred before the wife married this gentleman. And that's what this picture is referring to here, is that very scandal. Jackson ended up meeting less with his actual political cabinet and more with this kitchen cabinet. When he did meet with his actual political cabinet, it was more of informal meetings where he let them know about his decisions on policy and then they would go and do it. Now, based on your knowledge of how the cabinet system works and how the executive branch works, do you think this is a good way to run a cabinet and a good way to run a country? It's an interesting question, an interesting thought. I'd love to know your opinion on that if you want to email it to me or just tell me in class tomorrow. Now, the kitchen cabinet was made up of 3 newspaper editors, 3 politicians, a lawyer, and a former friend or a former personal friend of Andrew Jackson. In 1831, Jackson forced his cabinet members, the political cabinet, to resign. And he ended up reorganizing his official cabinet and chose new men. And this was the end of this informal kitchen cabinet. Now we had a lot of talk about cabinet members. If you're confused, please watch it again. And if you're still confused, shoot me off an email and I'll answer it to the best of my abilities. We'll talk about something called the spoils system. And there's a lot written about this on the internet and in textbooks with reference to Andrew Jackson. A little bit of background first. You see, Andrew Jackson felt that all people should have an opportunity to succeed in life, not just the rich or the elite or the upper class educated people of the country. The spoils system was Jackson's, as I call it, governmental version of this. Jackson felt the government positions should be rotated, meaning you shouldn't have one person be in the same job forever and ever and ever. You should take turns, like how little kids take turns with playing on the playground on swings or on the monkey bars. Jackson ended up replacing many people who are at lower level government positions who had been in those positions actually for quite a long time, longer than he felt it was good. This rotating of people within government positions would stop the development of a group of government people who felt they were above the common citizen because they were in the government. And these common people were not. They're just commoners. They don't know how to run the government. You see, these government people who had been in these positions for so long were starting to lose touch with what the citizens, what the every ordinary person, really what they needed and what they wanted their government to do. The spoils system was also a way for Jackson to reward people who had supported him. And again, it was his way to get rid of corrupt officials. Yeah, we're going to rotate you out of your government position because you've been in here too long and you're corrupt. Remember, the common people were excited about Jackson being president because he was getting rid of corrupt officials. And this was how Jackson did it. However, the reality of it is, yes, Jackson got rid of corrupt officials, but he got rid of fewer than 20% of these people. In the grand scheme of things, not very many. So here's my extra credit question for you, which I will post on Edmodo. Do you think the spoils system, this way of rotating people in and out of government positions, and a way of rewarding people who had supported Andrew Jackson, was this a good way to stop corruption? Or was it a good way to maybe start corruption? It's an interesting idea to think about. It'll be on Edmodo as extra credit question. As always, this was an educational video, so please make sure to rewatch anything you didn't understand, or if you missed something on your outline. Then go to Edmodo and answer the homework questions. And I, Mr. Volkman, will see you in class.